Hi class, this is my presentation on velocity-based training, a general overview of what it is, a couple different conversations regarding the effectiveness, real-world implications, and then how to apply it as a coach and whether or not kind of I would or would not. So first off, what is velocity-based training? This is kind of relatively a new form of resistance training or a new form of programming, if you will, where you utilize a device or an app on a phone, sometimes or an iPad, to track the speed of a movement. Um, the idea here is that you can offer real-time feedback and help to provide information for athletes for weight selection and understanding of how a set aligns with a goal. So if you're losing a substantial velocity as the set goes on, perhaps the weight was too high for the number of reps that were intended. On the flip side of that, maybe the weight is sort of flying up and down versus an intended goal. So it offers that real-time feedback and some trackable data along the way that you can kind of set a standard for to help adhere to. So, um, it's one of those things where a coach has that feedback loop with the athlete, and this is allowing to make that happen in real time and offer some real data behind those conversations as well. So, moving on, is it effective? At the end of the day, all things that we talk about in this realm, the effectiveness is what matters most. And the short answer is it certainly can be effective. Things can be adjusted in real time, proper weight selections can be made, feedback between the athlete and coach, like I talked about, and then the data that helps kind of round it out. Another thing, and this is certainly something that I thought about in this conversation, was the motivational factor for athletes. Um, Being able to see the data for some folks makes sense in terms of increasing the motivation that comes from those workouts. Other people, a much different wavelength of brain thinking, but I think for some athletes, especially that I have worked with, this type of device would be, helpful. Um, Other things that have been found to be positives in this regard are the fact that you can utilize these training sessions to help align with specific goals accurately. So if your goal is to work within the power range of reps and intensity, you can do so and see that what you're doing aligns with that thought as well. So a couple of challenges, and this is always the thing for me where I work is always the cost is a big one. So um, if you have a fixed budget, is this a device or something like that that would take precedent over other things that are more necessary? Perhaps not, right? If you have a need and a budget, maybe this is lower on that, priority list. But along with that, some of the accuracy of the devices and the dependability of them over time is questionable, based on the study that I have cited at the end there. Some of the devices, when tested on non-human participants, offered quite a variety in data. So, if you have a machine of sorts moving a barbell versus a human, and the data points are inaccurate, there's some eyebrows being raised and some concerns there. But with all things, technology improves over time, so that notion may be a thing of the past a few years down the road as well. So just some challenges to note, though, with anything you have to consider the X's and O's per se of that. So, and lastly, looking at data, is the data something that's digestible both by the coach and the athlete, or is it just a confusing, set of numbers on a spreadsheet? So it it really boils down to whether or not affordability and dependability drive the decision to say yes, and then understanding how to use that technology is of utmost importance. So, kind of to round out my thoughts here, some practical implications, some things that, I think would be good uses of this technology at this time. First things first, you must ensure that this athlete's prepared. It's likely not something that you're going to do with a novice lifter or someone that is not very proficient and sound in their technique and form. Just from a safety standpoint consideration there, you don't want to tell someone that's new to squatting to squat with a set velocity and try to move weight and end up with injuries and or things being broken. So um, some benefits that are really helpful for a lot of athletes, but in my world with powerlifting as a thought, you can certainly increase your maximal load, being that you're kind of learning to recruit high threshold motor units and doing so by generating velocity. It's kind of a coaching cue in a sense that has been around for a while, where you're not just moving the weight, you're trying to increase the speed in which you move the weight. An example would be bench press, where you're not wanting to go from the chest to the rack position at one speed. You're trying to accelerate off the chest. um, and then I think where this comes into play, like weight room setting, the best would be with barbell movements. um, Noting that when the bar is in a relatively straight path, meaning you're not moving dynamically all around. Like an example where it wouldn't be good would be, say, like a lunge with a rotational aspect to it or anything like that, where that what's being measured would have to be moved across multiple planes. So the barbell movements, where the bar is sort of A to B in a sense, might be the most practical way to incorporate velocity-based training. And then some other tools would be kind of accessories along the way. So um, I hope what I've said kind of rounds out my thoughts well, and my write-up certainly adds a bit more detail as well. So I look forward to everyone else's thoughts and feedback and comments as per usual. So thank you.